As creatives, we tend to carve out our own way of doing things. Everything from the way we speak, the way we think, the way we dress and express ourselves, all the way down to the way we choose to consume. And because of this, it's hard for us to fit within a mold or set guidelines when it comes to doing certain things. In this case, decluttering our belongings. So if you're a creator, artist, mixed medium hobbyist, or professional self-expressionist, I'd like to offer you some decluttering advice that will help you let go without feeling like you're being stripped of your personality. But before I dive into my list of action items I think you should consider, I'd like to quickly talk about an unfortunate misconception that many of us creatives fall victim to in this space. And that is that one cannot be both a minimalist and a creative. However, I'd have to firmly disagree because I'm currently doing it and have been doing it for the past 5 years as of recently. So as I lead us through this conversation, all I ask is that you keep this one thing in mind. You are more than capable of simplifying your life without losing grips with your creativity and personality. This isn't a this or that choice you have to make. At the end of the day, it's about creating more with less stuff. I'm going to show you how to do that. Number one, be honest about what type of creative you are. As a creative person myself, I totally understand what it's like trying to balance my interest with this minimalism thing. But I've learned over the past 5 years that it's less about my stuff and more about me. Meaning I had to get clear about what type of creative I wanted to be before making any decisions about what to keep and what not to keep in my life. Because sometimes we buy stuff, whether it's art supplies, cameras, or anything for that matter, based on the type of person we want to be. And that doesn't always match up with who we actually are and what we truly enjoy doing with our time. So we have to be honest with ourselves and break up with our fantasy self if we're at all interested in living with less without losing sight of who we are as a creative. Now, if you're looking for a comprehensive breakdown of what it means to break up with your fantasy self, I'll link to a video I did a few years ago all about this concept. The ideas I share and examples I give are very easy to understand because at that time, I was going through this exact transition I'm talking about today. I broke up with my fantasy self and shared my learnings in that video, so definitely check that out if you haven't seen it. Number two, set space and creative limitations. Let me explain what I mean by that. As a creative, it's important that we have a designated space for our creative supplies to live and our creative process to thrive. I think you would agree with that sentiment for the most part. So why is this important? Well, when we limit the amount of space we have to store our creative supplies, it forces us to be more intentional with the supplies we decide to purchase and store. For example, maybe the space you have is limited to one shelf or a closet. Or if you're fortunate to have a separate office or studio, that's great. But again, make sure the creative supplies you keep are limited to the room you have available in that space. Now, in addition to setting spatial limitations, I also want to challenge you to embrace creative limitations as well. See, sometimes limiting ourselves can actually help our creativity grow and expand because we're then forced to work with what we have instead of having access to unlimited options. As an example, I started my YouTube channel, this channel you're watching right now, with an iPhone 6 and a free editing software. And that limitation, believe it or not, helped me grow and learn as a creative early on without needing more than I actually needed. Number three, repurpose your creative supplies and projects. Now, to continue with this idea of creating spatial limitations for yourself, it's also worth noting that if you can repurpose your creative supplies and projects into decor for your home, then that alone will help out tremendously with the appearance of clutter. Take, for example, my brother, who is an artist, a sculptor, a painter, all of it. Needless to say, he has a lot of creative supplies that he uses on the daily to create his craft. Now, something he does that I find very unique is he only displays his work, finished and unfinished, as decor throughout his apartment. And he also limits the amount of space he's willing to use to store his tools. See, by doing this, he's been able to tremendously cut back on the appearance of a cluttered home. Because A, he uses his art to decorate his home, and B, he only keeps the tools he needs because he's limited the amount of space he's willing to use to store what he owns. Number four, shift your decluttering focus. Now, this is going to require you to self-reflect a bit and have an honest conversation with yourself. Because most of the time, it's not that we need to cut down on or declutter our creative supplies or gear or whatever you're into, but that there's just so much clutter in general across other areas of our lives that we as creatives tend to blame the chaos on our creativity because that's the easy thing to do. However, I strongly want to encourage you, especially if you know for a fact that other areas of your life are cluttered, to make a shift in your decluttering focus. Spend some time reflecting, as I've said, and look at every area of your life and ask yourself, am I holding on to anything, things, relationships, or thoughts that are not serving a purpose adding value, or is actively blocking me from participating in my creative outlet the way I would like? And if so, that's where your creative focus should be until those areas are cleared of their clutter. Number 5, develop a system for your leftover supplies. Most creative projects are going to have some kind of leftover supplies. Think paints, clay if you're a sculptor, yarn, sewing material, film if you're into film photography and exposing your photos in a dark room. Whatever that thing is for you, you'll most likely have leftover supplies. And having a plan and a system for those leftovers can help you better manage your supplies and avoid shoving them in random places, thus creating clutter. So if you don't have a system, create one. Maybe it's storing things in a container and not buying anything new until you've used up what you have. Maybe part of your system is relying on those spatial limitations we talked about earlier, or donating your leftovers to another creative in your community, or a youth center that frequently sponsors creative events. Whatever it is, it's best to have a plan and system in place, because even if you don't have leftovers now, one day you might. If you don't have a plan for them, they'll quickly pile up and become clutter. Remember, the best system is the one you actually use. I hope you found this conversation helpful, and if you did, give it a thumbs up for me. Also, comment below with any questions you have. I'd love to continue this conversation. Now, if you're not a creative person, but you are a collector, you might want to check out this video here. Keep growing, keep learning, and always stay true to you. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.